So today is March 22nd, 2022, 3/22/22. What it do? Um, Pages 137 and 139. Um, I also wanted to read a little bit about people assemblies in Jackson Rising, chapter 5. Last couple weeks we've been reading excerpts from the Jackson Kush plan, which was their plan of execution to recreate the economy in Jackson, Mississippi, in order to be more sustainable, more humanitarian, more um, with more involvement from the community, using participatory democracy. Uh, Cooperation Jackson is still doing the work. Uh, their Jackson Kush plan was created with Malcolm X Grassroots Organization, which is a multi-state uh, people's organization that does a lot of organizing. So we went deep into that, read a few things. Now we're getting into the Jackson People's Assembly model. Now, remember two main factors of Cooperation Jackson's focus is the people assemblies and political engagement, both being important, people's assemblies being primary. That is where you can create consensus, create a understanding of an awareness of what people need in your community, create bridges between the different communities in your community, right? Um, have a voice that is unified and loud. So when you come to the political engagement portion, you're all together. It's not segmented. It's not my group, this group. It's our groups, plural, have come together for a singular focus to speak to you today. And it's not that these other groups don't have their own movements and things that they're trying to do that they also may want to talk to the politicians about. But in terms of um, what they did in Jackson, Mississippi, they were able to go across color lines, black, white. They created allies with different ethnicities, the Native American and Latino, as well as created bridges with other organizations. So that was part of the Jackson Kush plan. So now we're in the people's assemblies, right? And so I wanted to read the different types of people's assemblies that they talk about. Um, so let's see. However, given these two basic defining characteristics, well, let me actually read what they say is a people's assembly. Let me see. A people's assembly, first and foremost, is a mass gathering of people organized and assembled to address essential social issues and/or questions pertinent to a community. Right. So there are three essential types. One, a united front or alliance-based assembly. This type of assembly is typically a democratic form that is populated and driven by formally organized entities, i.e., political parties, unions, churches, civic organizations. You know, um, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. Let's highlight though democratic form, right? So it's done in a way that is fair and equitable to all parties involved, and they all have a say. Two, constituent assembly. This type of assembly is a representative body, not a direct democratic body of the people in their totality. This type of assembly is dependent on mass outreach, but is structured intentionally or unintentionally to accommodate the material and social limitations of the people. So, you have people that have to work and deal with childcare, social limitations, interests, access to information, political and ideological differences, right? So that's a little bit closer to a little more traditional political structure in the sense of what we're used to seeing representatives in office. But this is more so community members taking office of their community to get consensus from the community, if that makes sense, right? So it's kind of like you become a czar or a neighborhood ambassador, kind of like what we're doing with the letter. Yes, Cal, exactly. That is a mixture of the two, kind of, because you guys are representing a community um, as a constituent assembly, right? You guys are representing the community, but also you guys are aligning with other people who are in this cause as well, right? The whole stop the closing of the schools in Oakland, that's a united front, right? So you see how they can kind of come together and intersect. And then this third one, a mass assembly. The mass assembly is the broadest example of people's democracy. It normally emerges during times of acute crisis when there are profound ruptures in society. These types of assemblies are typical, all-consuming, short-lived entities. They do this. Uh, the one massive example of that, I think, would be something like the George Floyd, movement. Now, I know that was like not everybody necessarily unified, right? But it was a broad example of people responding to an acute problem, something that just had happened, and now things are going in response to that. Now, it is harder for this to be sustainable because more people have to do things that are not associated with the cause because life is life. So we just recognize that the mass assembly is potent and short. The united front and the constituent assembly can be a little more maintained depending on the resources available. But just by sheer number, the mass assembly is hard to maintain. Not impossible, once institutions and culture starts to come in, and if they react fast, and we see that with certain things, that certain laws and executive orders that get passed. So it's not impossible to make a positive impact stick, but it does take a lot of power, a lot of people power to really make that shift. All right, so I just wanted to read that. We'll get
It
into.
seemed like they're addressing either a pain or a passion in those people's assemblies, because it's like something, like you said, acute happened right now. We need to come together and handle this. So a pain or a passion.
Mm, thank you. I like how you broke it down with the alliteration. The pain or passion can be passive. Gotta proliferate. You know what I'm talking about? All right. So look,
Yeah.
um, let's get back to collective courage. Thank you, Sister Jessica Gordon Nimhart, for writing this. All right, so page 137. Let's start at um, a little bit earlier at 136. The modern co-op, as it was called, in Harlem boasted that it was the first Negro cooperative grocery store operated according to the Rochdale principles in the northeastern area. Given the other information I have, it does not seem likely that Modern was the first African American Rochdale cooperative in the Northeast, let alone in Harlem, though it is possible. According to Baker, Modern Cooperative Association started in September 1940 as a buying club whose members were civil service employees. She remarked that Modern Co-op had members with more stable income, with one-third of its 110 members holding three $10 shares, and that the goal for the entire membership was ownership of 3 shares per member. It realized a substantial profit, which allowed the buying club to open a co-op grocery store. Baker contended that the store's bids fared to become an outstanding example of cooperative effort in the community. According to Crump's description of the modern co-op, 20 mostly middle class African Americans came together to increase the quality and decrease the cost of their groceries. They researched the business and learned how to become a distributor of the co-op label through Eastern Cooperative Wholesale. They started with the buying club. Each member put in $5. They operated out of a member's basement. Crump emphasizes that the president of the board of directors was a housewife. In fact, Crump identifies her as Miss Thurgood Marshall, almost certainly the first wife, Vivian Burry, of the man who went to become the chief counsel of the NAACP, had the winning legal team, Brown versus V Board of Education, the separate but overturning the separate but equal doctrine, and in 1967 became a U.S. Supreme Court justice. That Miss Marshall was the president of the board suggests that women were assuming leadership roles. You want to pick it up from there, Mama Mia?
Yeah, sure. In April 1941, the modern co op began to raise capital for a retail store. The minimum investment per family was set at $15, with about 100 members. The store opened on May 31st, 1941. By summer, average weekly revenues were about 300, and the enterprise was capitalized at $50,000. Members received a patronage rebate rather than a dividend, though it was suspended in the first years until profits were regularized. Between 30 and 40% of the co op's members were non members. Oh, I'm sorry, between 30 and 40% of the co op's customers were non members, which means that the store supplied the community, not just its membership base. Education was important to the members of the modern co op, and it maintained weekly study classes and functioning committees. This is another example of the importance of education, particularly self education about cooperative economics in the development and maintenance of a cooperative. How to make cooperatives a more widely used strategy was also a goal of the co op. The modern co op is also an example of building from small to large, starting with a buying club, then becoming a cooperative grocery store. Other African American cooperatives and cooperatives in general follow a similar model of growth. One fact repeated in the reports is that many of the members were Black civil servants with an almost middle class income and steady work. This helped the co op stay in business.
Mm. So I think that couple things I wanted to highlight. One, that they began as a buying club, right? So that first initiated a need was initiated by a need that they wanted to buy cheaper produce, and then they used those savings to continue to grow from there. And then we see how they're tied in with the legendary Thurgood Marshall and his wife being a part of that, his first wife. Um, but then also we see that they also participated in helping to hire folks, and and they also had weekly study classes and functioning committees, so they started to organize themselves very professionally and took it seriously. um, so I feel like that's profound. Like they started small and grew, and kept the vision. The
Most
Harlem.
definitely.
You want to
And
read?
they also made it affordable.
Oh,
It's
but yeah,
like,
that's the key part right there, because man, like it's prices are so high for everything. Like I literally spent almost $100 at the pump, and I just was like, wow, like feeling, because I was at EE, like I was like on I've never like spent that much on gas before.
you'll
It was
never
like
get on
eighty
EE
dollars.
again. Jeez.
It was like $89, and I don't have a Suburban or nothing like that. I have a regular four door sedan. What is it? Volkswagen Jetta. Like it's supposed to be decent on gas, and I spent almost $100 on gas, and I'm like, wow, like that's
I'm telling you, them gas prices can start a revolution. Just by, if they go much higher, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, yeah, a buy-in club, it would be great if we could find a way to, I mean, beyond Costco, get together and get some kind of gas discounts or, you know, something.
Okay. You want to keep reading, Mama Mia, or does somebody else have something to say? Were you about to say something, Barrett?
No, I was just curious and looking. It seems like, I mean, from what Google says, the general markup on a gallon of gas is about 15 cents. So I think a lot of it, I
That's
mean,
all?
that's it. Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of what we're seeing right now is just straight up like a high commodity price for gas. But I mean, it's definitely a fascinating thing to look at the moment.
Wait, are you
I
saying
wonder
we're
if
being
we
price
could
gouged right now?
partner.
Are you saying we're being price gouged
He's
right
saying
now?
that the markup's only
No,
15
no, I'm saying the
cents.
markup's pretty small. It's really just the cost of oil. I mean, I think oil's at like $110 a barrel, you know? So I think it's the price of the price of the product itself. I don't think it's the gouging. I think it's just the high price of the commodity.
Well, so the people selling the commodity are the ones who are price gouging them, because how could gas have been $2 and something a gallon 2 years ago? Um, yeah, so it's like, I wonder if we could partner with actual producer of gas and bypass all the markups between, from ARCO, from uh, wherever the transportation costs. There's got to be some way to save. How about we bypass gas? I like that. Go, Natalie. So then we just have to figure out alternative transportation.
Right, like maybe like a community owned hybrid or electric car transportation service that operated like in the local Bay Area. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. Like we could talk about it, but I think that there might be something there, like something that would encourage folks to participate more in the green economy, and not wait for laws to be passed. You know, for things to start shifting. That like we take that lead and start leading our communities in that way, and also find and we might be able to get support from certain politicians or organizations that have an interest in seeing this economy become more green because they see that we're taking that initiative. They might be like, look, we'll bless y'all with some cars or something. You know, we could create like a job market because folks could be drivers, but it's like folks already doing Uber and stuff. Like, no, let's collectively buy the cars, and then the people drive for them. They get a wage for driving, and they don't have to, you know what I'm saying, worry about the maintenance of the car and all of that, and then a solar car share. I think that, man, there's so many ways we could flip this, yo. If we really like, if we
Yeah, I
really
was thinking, isn't there a car company in Africa that makes cars? I wonder if they do the electric ones. We could try to buy from them.
mm-hmm. That would be awesome.
Anyway,
No, this is amazing. I'm writing all of this
the
down, yo.
Harlem Rivers. Okay. The Harlem River Consumers Cooperative opened in June 1968 in Harlem at 7th Avenue and West 147th Street by the Esplanade Gardens Cooperative. The first 10,000 for the co-op was sold in shares of 5,000 each by teenagers going door to door in Harlem. Time magazine praised the effort as an example of people willing to help themselves. A popular venture, income from sales of stock was 161,000 when the store opened and grew to 209,000 after the first 2 months it was open. I mean, can we just look at these numbers? $5 a share and they got 161,000. How many shares is that? I'm like, that's amazing. Um, so after the first 2 months it was open and sales in the first year reached 1.7 million. According to founder Cora Walker, Harlem River Cooperative was founded in order to combat high prices and inferior products in other stores in the neighborhood and to provide ethnic foods and more food choices. The co-op received a lot of press coverage. Basically, she found 6 articles, mostly from the New York Times, mostly about its success, but a couple about a labor dispute. By 1971, the co-op boasted 4,000 members who had bought $5 and $10 shares and announced plans to set up co-ops in 26 low-income areas around the city with a $20,000 contract from the New York Community Training Institute. The parent company of all the new stores would be called Head Start Food Cooperative. Members were celebratory also because they had just put a scandal and labor problems behind them. In mid-1969, there was a labor strike and suppliers refused to deliver food. Excuse me while I pause and get frustrated. In addition, there was a quarrel among some of the shareholders. The dispute was in the employees' union about store management belonging to the union and how to handle layoffs when sales were slow. The co-op argued that the manager and assistant managers of the store should do the buying since the co-op was not a chain store and was exempt from union rules. The union argued that the department managers who were union members should do the buying. Cooperative stores do not always have unions, and those cooperatives that do were often started by the union or union members, so that labor disputes are rare. This one was prolonged and it almost destroyed the cooperative. The board tried to fire Walker, the co-op's founder, coordinator, and counsel, because she accused some of the board members of betraying our cooperative community project by supporting the union contract. She argued not only that control over buy-in should remain in the hands of the consumer owners, not the union, but also that the union had too much control over who could be hired. Walker argued that if the co-op was going to help the community, it should be able to hire members of the community and train them, but this was not part of the proposed union contract. The two white board members from the supermarket chain resigned so as not to be in the middle of the dispute. Several months later, these issues were settled, the labor dispute was resolved, and Walker and the board were reconciled.
Mm. So
That's a lot of drama in a paragraph.
it's very interesting to hear that dynamic of just decisions being made and folks not rocking with it. Like this is something that happens, and so how do we you know deal with these conflicts? This is one of those examples of where it's not easy. This is an ideal path for us, but it's not easy. So we learn from these examples as well, because fighting will happen and disagreements will happen.
I wonder why they couldn't open their own union chapter and then just invite the community to be the union members so that they could overcome that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, they didn't want to train people and they wanted to start from bottom up so that, people in the community could get job skills too, which is, I think, a great thing.
I agree. I agree. So, I mean, that's an interesting point. Certain industries are harder to break into if you don't know the people, if you don't know the gatekeepers. So maybe there was gatekeepers. I can imagine like labor unions. I don't know what's the pathway of starting a labor union. Is it as easy as just saying, "Hey, we want to be a union and we have to file a DBA or something," or is there like a process to where you got to appeal to someone and you know how
That's
humans
a good one. I don't know.
you know how humans can be when it come to power and just like, oh, okay, I got the power to let you in or not. And if I have any kind of prejudice or any kind of nepotism is at work or any of that, it can make it hard. So maybe there was some blockages there. I'm speculating, but I could imagine that playing a part in it.
I like how the white board members were like, we're not in this. We're just gonna get out of we don't want to be in the middle. That's funny. They jump ship quick. We don't
It
want to make
says,
this a white and black thing, so we're gonna get out.
Brother Don says, you need 51% or more of the workforce to agree to a union. Oh wow. Okay. Thank you for letting us know that they can file for representation. Okay.
But
See.
I'm wondering if you could, do you have to apply to another open union that's already going, or can you start like your own chapter with that, those kind of differences?
That's a good question.
It's like a union is a union like a cooperative where everyone works together for the common good.
It's I think it's like one of those assembly people's assembly options I mentioned. I would say a constituent assembly is more like what
So
a
representatives.
right representatives who have access to what the people want, but they also have like to understand. They have to understand the bylaws and the compliances, and they have to be a liaison. So they speak for the workers, but also have to make concessions to fit their agreements with the labor providers. So yeah, I would say it's something like that, a constituent assembly with some different elements in there. All
I
right.
think sometimes too, unions take like a pretty good, not a good, but like a chunk of your pay cut, and they use that money to like both fund operations and I think sometimes provide like healthcare benefits, or if someone gets hurt on the job kind of thing, like paying, you could maybe like forget what that's called when you get hurt but you still get paid, but sometimes they
Workman's comp.
workman's comp. I think they sometimes pool money to provide benefits like that.
In retirement too, yeah. Yeah, I agree. But what I know that they killed the unions a lot by making it so that they couldn't take dues out of people's checks, so that like you would have to voluntarily pay, and then they convince you that, oh, you don't really need that union, but you do. So yeah.
Right, right. Like unions are not in the favor of the those at top. It is literally something that makes it harder for them to exploit you. Not that unions are super just all law abiding and perfect, right? I know there's some examples where that's probably not true, but in general, it provides a collective voice for the workers so that the people up top just can't make sweeping decisions or make cuts or fire people for frivolous reasons. Like there's recourses and accountability processes that are are a part of that are respected because they got the law on their side. So I'm for unions
Right.
for the most part, and I feel like
Right.
at the end of the day, anytime when you collectivize, you just there's a power to that is undeniable.
Hmm. This is true. Yeah, that looks like a serious dynamic, the union versus the collective. Here we go. Unions are the mediators between the work and the owners, making sure. Sorry, I was reading that. Making sure legally they're treated right. Exactly. I wonder why they don't let the management get into union. Because a lot of times we don't want to be against the workers. Managers are just regular people too, right? At least you know, I guess the front facing managers. We'd be like, no, we want y'all to have it all. So
Right.
I think it sets them up again in a adversarial way, the managers against the workers, and it doesn't have to be that way.
No, it doesn't, and yeah, it's a lot of divide and conquer that gets played in these corporations. So it's in the benefit of those up top to mitigate and keep these unions at bay with divide and conquer. So they probably find ways to make it harder for unions to find consensus or to find a way to get on the same page. Um, you know, Amazon workers at Amazon been trying to unionize in different areas of the country for a while now. So it's not in Bezos' interest to unionize because it's going to make his business model less favorable. I think he's been able to pay, you know, smaller wages than what would be okay. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like now there's a push because of recently he's been being seen in a light that's not good. I think the pay has gone up in these Amazon work shops, but then
Yeah, the 15.
yeah, but then they work you crazy though. So it's like, yeah, you get the pay that's maybe a little more competitive for an entry level job, but then they gonna work you like what? And the conditions are not necessarily the best. Where there's cases of people saying, "Look, I can't even go to the bathroom." They saying I'm eating up company time going to the restroom. Like what? Like
Yes, I heard it. People have to take a bottle with them and stuff. Also, and Tut brought up Walmart, which is another big perpetrator against workers, saying that they have a training on how managers need to intimidate and section themselves off from the regular staff for production purposes. But I mean, that's corporate welfare because they pay such low wages that people need to go to the state or, get help from the government. And if they would just pay fair wages, we wouldn't have to supplement their income.
right.
Another another place you can talk for days on.
This is awesome, y'all. We're a bit over time, but I love this conversation. We touched on some awesome concepts. I love the gas buying club. I love the groceries buying club. I'm taking notes of these, and like I said, we're developing a list of
Solar Car Collective.
solar car collective. Yes, yes.
So
Um,
don't even, I love the fact that jump past gas completely and like, we don't even want gas no more. No, that's cool.
I love it too, y'all. Y'all are amazing, and y'all are so intelligent and have much to offer this community at large. So let's keep building. We'll be back tomorrow. Same black time, same black channel. All right?
Peace.
Peace.